When I was 17, my family moved 2 states away without telling me. They left a note on the kitchen counter that said, "You'll figure it out." 12 years later, after I finally made it without them, they reached out, trying to reconnect. I came home that day to an empty house, and the cruelest sentence I've ever read. Just, "You'll figure it out." I stood in the doorway not knowing what I had done wrong. I figured they were just tired of pretending to love me. But eventually I realized they had never even pretended. When I was 13, I baked a birthday cake for my mom all by myself. She called it clumpy. At 15, I tutored my brother through his finals while he called me a know-it-all and slammed his door in my face. At 16, I gave my entire paycheck to my dad to help cover bills, and later when I brought it up, he told me I was useless. I was always useful, but I was never loved. My mom, dad, and my brother, my only family, had packed up their lives and moved 2 states away. No warning. I found out a week later from the landlord. They'd canceled the lease early. I had 7 days to leave. I spent 3 nights at a friend's place, then ran out of couches. After that, I slept in the back of a storage unit I rented with what was left of my savings. I snuck into the YMCA to shower, ate peanut butter with a spoon for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I applied for jobs on free library computers and pretended everything was okay. Eventually, I got hired at a diner, graveyard shift. The manager, Carla, was gruff but fair, paid me under the table in cash until I could get a proper ID. She let me nap in the break room once when I nearly passed out from exhaustion. I clawed my way through it, saved every receipt, bought a prepaid phone, watched free YouTube videos about finance and goal setting. That first year, I barely survived, but I made it. The turning point came when a regular at the diner offered me a temp job cleaning out old office files. It paid 3 times more than the diner. I said yes. That job led to another, and another. I learned fast, showed up early, asked questions. By 22, I was freelancing full-time. By 25, I launched a consulting business. Just me, a folding table, and a borrowed laptop. By 27, I had a team of 5 contractors, my own office, and a client list filled with companies I used to dream about. By 29, I was a millionaire. Not an influencer millionaire, not a fake-it-for-Instagram millionaire. A real one. With savings, a retirement account, no debt, a paid-off apartment, and health insurance. The first time I saw my bank app hit 7 figures, I cried. Through all of that, my family never reached out. Not once. One time, I saw my brother, Aaron, in my suggested friends list. He's married now, still living in the state they disappeared to. I stared at his photo for a long time, wondering if he ever told his wife about me, if he claimed I ran away, or if he just says nothing at all. Sometimes I think it would be easier if I hated them, but it was never hate. It was heartbreak. Now I go to therapy because I want to stay unbroken. My therapist, Melissa, says healing isn't about erasing the past, it's about learning how to live with it. I've made a list of people who saved me when they didn't have to. Coworkers, classmates, strangers, people who showed me what real support looks like. Last week, a podcast interview I did about surviving family estrangement went viral. It hit 1 million views in 4 days. My inbox flooded with messages, support, gratitude, strangers telling me I'd put words to their pain. Then, one email stood out. Subject line, "You're still our daughter." It was from my mom. No apology, just a paragraph about hearing my side and how maybe we could talk. Then another message came in, this time from Aaron. "We miss you. Can we fix this?" I stared at the screen for a long time before closing the laptop. I sat with it, wondered if healing meant looking back or staying forward. I didn't respond right away. I needed time. Melissa suggested I give myself at least a week. No rush to respond. Give yourself space to feel whatever comes up. So I did. Focused on work, went to the gym, had dinner with friends, normal stuff. But the emails haunted me. I kept opening them, reading them, closing them again. My mom's message felt cold, like a stranger reaching out. Aaron's was shorter, but it felt more human, more real. I couldn't stop thinking about them. After 10 days, I finally replied to Aaron. Just something simple. It's been 12 years. What changed?
Then I hit send before I could overthink it. His response came within the hour. He said the podcast had made him realize what they'd done. He claimed he was only 15 when they left me, that he didn't have a choice, that he'd always wondered about me, that he'd looked me up online a few times over the years but never had the courage to reach out, that seeing me successful made him proud. I didn't buy it. Not completely. If he'd really been so concerned, why wait until I was publicly successful? I asked him exactly that. His next email was longer. He admitted that money was tight, that our parents' business had failed, that his wife was pregnant with their second child, that medical bills were piling up. My stomach dropped. There it was, the real reason. I didn't respond for another week. Then, my mom sent a follow-up email with old family photos attached, pictures of me as a baby, us at the beach, maybe 5 or 6 years old, me and Josh building a snowman, happy moments that felt like they belonged to someone else's life. At the bottom of the email, she wrote, "We made mistakes. We want to make amends." I showed the emails to Melissa during our next therapy session. She reminded me I was in control, that I could set boundaries, that I didn't owe them anything. But she also said that closure might help me move forward, whether that meant reconciliation or a final goodbye. I nodded along, but inside I was torn. Part of me wanted to tell them to go to hell. Another part wanted to understand why they'd left me. And a tiny, stupid part of me still wanted them to love me. I decided to meet my brother first, just him. No parents. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop in Chicago, halfway between where we both lived. I flew in that morning, checked into a hotel, and tried to calm my nerves. I almost canceled 3 times. But at 2 p.m., I walked into that coffee shop and saw him immediately. He looked older, heavier, receding hairline, but his eyes were the same. He stood up when he saw me, awkward and uncertain. I didn't hug him. We just sat across from each other with our coffees, like strangers. The first 20 minutes were painful. Small talk about the weather, my flight, his drive. Then he started apologizing. "Clara, I'm so sorry," Josh said, voice cracking. "I was just a kid when it happened. I didn't know they were planning to leave you until it was too late. I was too scared to stand up to them." I just listened, studying his face for any sign he was lying. He seemed sincere, but I'd been fooled before. I asked him the question that had haunted me for 12 years. Why me? Why was I the one left behind? He looked down at his coffee. "They always saw you as the strong one, the independent one, the one who'd be fine on your own. They thought you didn't need them as much as I did. They convinced themselves you'd be better off without them." It was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. I told him about the storage unit, about eating peanut butter for weeks, about showering at the YMCA, working graveyard shifts at 17. His face crumbled. "I didn't know," he whispered. "They told me you had a plan, that you wanted to stay behind, that you were going to live with a friend's family, that you chose to separate from us." All lies. By the end of our meeting, I still wasn't sure what to think. He seemed genuinely remorseful. He showed me pictures of his wife and daughter, told me about his job as an accountant, asked about my business. He didn't directly ask for money, which surprised me. When we parted, he hugged me. I let him, but I didn't hug back. I just stood there, arms at my sides, feeling nothing. Back at my hotel, I called Melissa and told her everything. She pointed out that while my brother seemed sorry, he was still framing himself as a victim, still distancing himself from the role he played in my abandonment. She was right. He was 15, not 5, old enough to pick up a phone, old enough to send an email, old enough to check on me at least once in 12 years. That night, my mom called. I hadn't given her my number, so Josh must have. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Her voice sounded older, rougher. She cried when I said hello, started talking about how proud she was of me, how she'd always known I'd succeed, how special I was. I let her talk herself out. Then I asked her the same question I'd asked Josh. Why me? Her answer was different. We were in debt, Clara. We couldn't afford 3 mouths to feed. We knew you were smart enough to make it on your own. We figured you'd go to social services, get placed with a better family. We thought we were doing you a favor. I hung up, blocked her number immediately. I threw my phone across the room and screamed into a pillow. The next morning, I had an email from my dad. First contact in 12 years. He didn't apologize. Instead, he wrote about how hard their lives had been, about mounting medical bills and failed businesses, about how Josh's wife needed surgery, about how they were facing eviction. And then, at the very end, he asked if I could help the family out. Not a single question about my life, not one acknowledgement of what they'd done. I forwarded the email to Melissa with the subject line, "And there it is." She called me immediately, despite it being Sunday. We talked for an hour about boundaries, about forgiveness versus reconciliation, about the difference between helping someone and enabling them, about what I actually wanted versus what I thought I should want. By Monday morning, I'd made my decision. I emailed Josh, told him I was glad we met, that I understood he'd been in a difficult position when we were younger, that I was willing to have a relationship with him and his family, but only with clear boundaries. No money, no loans, no financial support of any kind, and no relationship with our parents until they took full responsibility for their actions. His response was immediate and telling. "I'm really disappointed, Clara," he wrote. "Our parents really need help. Families should support each other. You're being selfish with your success." All the guilt buttons they'd installed in me as a child lit up at once. I didn't respond. Instead, I booked an emergency appointment with Melissa and a vacation to Bali. I needed space to process everything. 3 days later, Josh called and left a voicemail. He apologized for pushing me. He said, "I've been thinking a lot about what you told me. I'm in therapy now, too." I believed him. He sounded different, less defensive. We talked about his kids, my business, normal stuff. Then he mentioned that our parents were coming to visit him the following weekend. Asked if I could consider meeting them, just for an hour, in a public place. I felt my chest tighten. "I'm not ready for that, Josh." He pushed a little, but when I went quiet, he backed off. After we hung up, I called Melissa. We had an emergency session that night. She helped me realize I wasn't afraid of seeing them because I hated them. I was afraid because I still craved their approval, still wanted them to love me, still wanted to be enough. It was pathetic, but it was true. I cried for an hour in her office. The next day, Josh texted again, said our mom had cried all night after hearing I wouldn't meet them, said our dad was talking about driving to my city anyway. I felt panicked, blocked Josh's number immediately. Then I called my assistant and told her I'd be working from home that week, ordered groceries for delivery, basically hid in my apartment like a scared kid. On Wednesday, the doorman called, said there was a couple downstairs asking for me, wouldn't give their names. I knew instantly. Told him I wasn't accepting visitors. 5 minutes later, my phone rang from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. It was my dad. "Clara, we drove 8 hours to see you. You're being childish. We deserve a chance to explain." I deleted the message and turned off my phone. Thursday morning, I woke up to someone pounding on my door. I froze, heart racing, checked the peephole. It was them, my parents, standing in my hallway like they had any right to be there. "Clara, please," my mom's voice came through the door. "We just want to talk to you. We know you're in there. We love you. We're sorry." I didn't open the door. I sat on the floor with my back against the wall, shaking. Eventually, they left. I called building security immediately and told them not to let those people up again. The guard sounded concerned, asked if I needed the police.
I said no, just don't let him up. Then I called Melissa. She came over on her lunch break, brought me a sandwich, and sat with me while I cried. She told me I had every right to set boundaries, that I didn't owe them a meeting, that what they were doing wasn't reconciliation, it was harassment. After she left, I got an email from Josh. He was furious. Said I'd humiliated our parents. Said they were staying in a cheap motel they couldn't afford because they were so desperate to see me. Said my wife needed surgery next month and they'd hoped I could help. Said I was being cruel. I didn't respond. Friday morning, I decided I needed to leave town for a while. I booked a flight to visit my friend Nora in Portland. She'd been one of the people who helped me when I was homeless, let me crash on her couch for a week when I had nowhere else to go. I trusted her completely. I was throwing clothes in a suitcase when my phone rang, unknown number again. I ignored it. 10 minutes later, my doorman called, said there was a woman downstairs having what looked like a medical issue, said she was asking for me by name, claimed to be my mother. I felt sick. Told him to call an ambulance if she needed help, but I wasn't coming down. He sounded uncomfortable, but agreed. I finished packing and headed downstairs an hour later. Checked the lobby carefully before walking in. No sign of them. I felt relieved, but also weirdly guilty. The doorman gave me a strange look as I passed, told me the ambulance had come, that the woman had been having chest pains, that she'd been taken to Memorial Hospital. I nodded and hurried out to my waiting Uber. At the airport, I got another call from Josh. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Mom had a heart attack," he said, crying. "She's in surgery. This is your fault for stressing her out." I hung up on him. Called Melissa instead. She answered immediately. I told her what happened, asked if I was a terrible person. "Clara, listen to me," she said, firm and calm. "You are not responsible for your mother's health. This feels like another manipulation tactic. Get on your plane, take care of yourself." So I did. Spent the weekend with Nora. Told her everything. She remembered when my family abandoned me. Remembered how broken I'd been. She was furious on my behalf. "They don't deserve a minute of your time," she said, pouring me another glass of wine. "Not after what they did to you." It felt good to have someone so firmly in my corner. Sunday night, I got an email from my dad. Said my mom was stable, that she'd had a stent put in, that she'd be released Tuesday. The email ended with, "She's asking for you. Don't you think you've punished us enough?" I showed it to Nora. She rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. "Textbook guilt tripping," she said. I knew I was right, but part of me still felt responsible. I flew home Monday. Found flowers outside my apartment door. The card read, "Please call us. We're staying at the Holiday Inn until Wednesday." No apology, no acknowledgement of boundaries, just another demand. I tossed the flowers down the trash chute. Tuesday morning, I got a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of my mom in a hospital bed, pale and small. The message said, "She might not have much time left. Do you really want to live with this regret?" I blocked the number. Called Melissa. She suggested I take a social media break, change my number, maybe even stay with a friend for a while. I agreed. Called my assistant, told her I'd be working remotely for 2 weeks, packed another bag. Before I could leave, my doorman called again. Said there was a young woman downstairs asking for me. Said she had a small child with her, claimed to be my sister-in-law. I felt cornered. These people wouldn't stop. I told the doorman to send her up. Decided to face this head on. The woman who knocked on my door looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes, a sleeping toddler on her shoulder. "I'm Leah," she said softly, "Josh's wife. I came alone because I wanted to talk to you, without the family drama." I let her in, reluctantly. Offered her some water. She accepted, gratefully. Leah laid her sleeping daughter gently on my couch and tucked a small blanket around her. Then she sat at my kitchen table and started to talk. "I only learned about you 3 years ago," she admitted. "Josh told me you ran away at 17, that you cut contact with the family. I always thought it was strange, but I never pushed. Hearing your podcast was a shock. I confronted him, and he finally admitted the truth. I just listened. Not sure to believe anymore."
Jenny seemed sincere. "I'm horrified by what they did to you," she continued. "I insisted Josh reach out, but I had no idea they were going to ask you for money. I'm embarrassed and angry about that. Yes, I do need surgery for a thyroid condition, but we have insurance. Your parents are the ones in financial trouble, not us. I asked her why she'd come. She looked me straight in the eyes. You deserve to know the whole truth, she said. Your parents have been telling everyone you abandoned the family, that you were mentally unstable, that you stole money from them before disappearing, that they spent years trying to find you, all lies to cover what they did. It felt like being punched in the chest. How do you know this is true? I asked. She pulled out her phone and showed me old Facebook posts. My mom asking for prayers for her troubled daughter. My dad claiming I'd taken their savings and run away. Posts about hiring private investigators, about checking homeless shelters. All carefully crafted to make them look like victims. All dated years after they abandoned me. Jenny apologized for being part of it, even unknowingly. She said she'd confronted them too, that they'd finally admitted everything when she threatened to tell the extended family the truth. They were desperate now because their lies were unraveling. My podcast had people asking questions they couldn't answer. Her daughter woke up then, a sweet little girl with soft curls and sleepy eyes. This is Lily. She's 3. I have another daughter on the way. I want my children to know their aunt. But only if you want that too. No pressure, no guilt, just an open door, if you ever choose to walk through it. After they left, I sat in my apartment for hours, processing. I called Melissa again and told her everything Jenny had said. She wasn't surprised. Abusers often control the narrative. They create alternate realities where they're the victims. She asked what I wanted to do now. I honestly didn't know. That night, I got another email from my dad. This one was different. Angry. Threatening. He said that if I continued spreading lies about them online, they'd sue me for defamation. Said they had proof I stole from them. Said they'd go to the media with their side if I didn't take down the podcast and issue a public apology. Said they expected financial compensation for the damage to their reputations. I forwarded the email to Melissa, then to my lawyer, Marcus. He called me immediately. This is empty posturing, he assured me. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation. Save everything. But don't respond. I'll handle it if they actually file anything, which I doubt. People who are serious about suing don't usually announce it first. The next day, Josh called. I let it go to voicemail. He sounded panicked. Clara, Jenny told me she visited you. Our parents are furious. They're saying horrible things about her now too. I'm scared they're going to do something desperate. Please call me back, on Jenny's phone, not mine. I didn't know what to believe anymore. I called Marcus again. He suggested meeting Josh and Jenny somewhere public, with him present as my lawyer, just to hear them out. I agreed. Reluctantly. We set up a meeting at a restaurant near Marcus's office for the next day. They showed up on time. Both looked awful, exhausted, worn down. Jenny had a bruise on her arm she kept trying to hide. Josh couldn't make eye contact. I'm Marcus, Clara's attorney, Marcus said as we sat down. Josh flinched but nodded. We all sat, ordered coffee, and then they started talking. The story that came out was worse than I had imagined. My parents had been living off Josh for years, moving in and out of his house, taking money for emergencies, watching the kids while criticizing everything he did, undermining him constantly. When Jenny confronted them about me, my dad grabbed her arm hard enough to leave a bruise. Josh kicked them out after that. Now they were staying in a motel, calling constantly, showing up at his office, harassing him at home. I listened without interrupting, just watched my brother break down as he described how they'd controlled him his entire life, how they'd convinced him I had abandoned them, how he'd been too scared to question their version of events, how he'd been trapped in their web of manipulation and lies for 12 years, how he was terrified they might hurt Jenny or the kids. Marcus asked careful, measured questions about financial entanglements, house titles, bank accounts, whether our parents had keys to their house. Josh answered everything.
Josh said they'd co-signed his mortgage, Said our dad was still on his bank account from college. Said they had spare keys. Said they knew all his passwords. Marcus took notes, occasionally glancing at me. By the end of the meeting, I felt completely drained, but clearer. This wasn't just about me anymore. Josh and Leah were victims too, in a different way than I had been, but still trapped. Marcus suggested they speak to a lawyer of their own, gave them a colleague's card, told them to change their locks, their passwords, and bank accounts immediately. They nodded, overwhelmed but grateful. As we were leaving, Josh hugged me. This time, I hugged him back. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something. A quiet acknowledgement that we'd both been broken by the same people, that maybe we could help each other heal. That night I got a stream of unhinged texts from my parents, accusations, threats, guilt trips. I blocked them all. Then I called Leah, asked if they were safe. She said yes. They changed the locks, stayed at a friend's the night before, and were looking into a restraining order. I felt a little relief, but the worry didn't go away. The next morning, I woke up to my phone ringing. It was Leah. She was hysterical. "They broke into our house," she sobbed. "They took Lily's baby photos, important documents, Josh's laptop. They left a note. Family matters should stay in the family." I told her to call the police immediately and said I'd meet them at their house. Called Marcus on the way. When I arrived, there was a police car parked out front. An officer was taking statements inside. The house was a mess. Drawers pulled out, papers everywhere. Josh sat on the couch with his head in his hands. Leah pointed out missing items to the officer. Photo albums, financial files, their spare car key. I introduced myself as family there to help. The officer looked skeptical. "Are you sure they didn't just use a key?" he asked. "Maybe this is just a misunderstanding." Leah showed him the bruise on her arm, told him about the escalating threats, the stalking, the break-in. He took notes, but didn't look convinced. Said without evidence, it would be hard to prove who had done it. After the police left, we started cleaning together. Found more missing items. Family photos, bank statements, a box of old legal paperwork. The spare key to their car was gone. Josh looked defeated. "This is my fault," he said. "I should have protected my family better. Should have stood up to them years ago. Should have looked harder for you." I didn't disagree, but I didn't pile on either. We were past that. Marcus arrived as we were finishing up, looked grimly. "This changes things," he said. "We need to document everything. Breaking and entering is a serious crime. You should all stay somewhere else for a few days. I'll help you file for emergency restraining orders first thing tomorrow." We nodded, too exhausted to argue. Leah packed bags while Josh and I secured the house again. Changed the locks, checked the windows, discussed security cameras. It felt surreal taking these precautions against our own parents, but it was necessary. They'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. As we were walking out, Josh's phone buzzed. A text from our dad. Just 3 words. "We're watching you." He showed it to me, hands trembling. I took a screenshot and sent it to Marcus. Then I made a decision. I told them they were coming to stay with me. My building had security cameras, a front desk, a doorman who already knew not to let our parents in. They accepted, gratefully. That night, the 4 of us ate takeout in my living room. Lily played with toys Leah had packed. We talked quietly about next steps, restraining orders, police reports, changing phone numbers, email addresses, maybe even moving. It wasn't the family reunion I ever imagined. Sitting there with the brother who once left me behind, his wife who'd believed lies about me, their daughter, innocent in all of it. But somehow it felt right. Like we were finally facing the truth. Like maybe, just maybe, something new could be built from the ashes of what our parents had destroyed. The next morning, Marcus called. Said he'd filed emergency restraining orders for all of us. Said we'd need to appear in court next week to make them permanent. Said he'd also reported the break-in to a detective he trusted, someone taking it more seriously than the original officers. Said we should all stay together until things were resolved. I agreed, called my assistant,
Told her I'd be working from home indefinitely. Family emergency.
She understood, rearranged my schedule. I set up a workspace in my guest room for Josh, who also needed to work remotely. Leah and Lily took over the living room, building pillow forts, watching cartoons. It was strange having people in my space. I'd lived alone for years. I liked my quiet routines, my clean counters, my empty sink. But there was something comforting about the noise, too. Lily's laughter, Leah's soft humming as she folded laundry, Josh's steady typing from the other room. It felt like family. Not the family that had abandoned me, but maybe the family we could become. That afternoon, my doorman called up. Said there was a delivery. Flowers. I told him to check the card before sending them up. He read it to me. "We know where you all are. This isn't over." I told him to refuse the delivery, to call the police if the delivery person wouldn't take them back. Then I called Marcus again. He said he'd add it to our case file, said it strengthened our request for restraining orders, said we were doing everything right. I didn't tell Josh or Leah about the flowers. They were stressed enough. Instead, I ordered extra groceries, made dinner for everyone, played with Lily, tried to create some kind of normalcy in this surreal, fragile little world. But that night, after everyone was asleep, I sat alone in my kitchen and finally let myself feel everything. The fear, the rage, the grief, the strange flickers of hope. I cried into a dish towel, silently, so no one would hear. In the morning, Leah found me making coffee. She asked if I was okay. I lied, said yes. She didn't believe me. She sat at the counter. "It's okay not to be okay, Clara," she said gently. "I'm not either. Josh cries in the shower where he thinks no one can hear. Lily keeps asking when we can go home. This whole situation is terrible, but I'm grateful we're facing it together." I looked at her, this woman I'd barely known, who had become part of my life so quickly, and asked her why she came to me that first day, why she'd chosen to believe me over the family she'd known for years. She gave a sad smile. "I've always felt something was off about your parents, the stories they told, the way they controlled Josh. The podcast confirmed everything I suspected. I couldn't let my daughters grow up thinking abandoning a child was ever acceptable." We hugged then, for the first time. It was awkward, but genuine. Not friendship exactly, not yet, but something close. Understanding. Solidarity. A shared determination to break the cycle that had twisted us all. The next few days settled into a strange routine. Work, cooking, playing with Lily, checking in with Marcus, jumping at unexpected sounds, flinching when phones rang. We were safe, but not at peace. Together, but still healing. Family, but still learning what that really meant. On Friday, Marcus called with news. The detective had found evidence. Security footage from a gas station near Josh's house showed our parents' car parked there during the break-in window. The restraining order hearing was set for Monday. Marcus was confident we'd get approved. We all felt relieved, but still anxious, still waiting for the next escalation. It came that night. A brick through Josh's car window in the garage. No note this time. No need. The message was clear. The building's security footage showed a man in a baseball cap, face turned carefully away from the cameras. We couldn't prove it was our dad, but we all knew. Filed another police report, added it to our case file. Tried not to let Lily see how shaken we were. Sunday night, we sat together making a plan for court. What to wear, what to say, what evidence to bring, how to explain our family history without sounding unhinged, how to show the pattern, how to protect ourselves, both legally and physically. It felt surreal, talking about our parents this way, like they were strangers, dangerous strangers, who just happened to share our DNA. As we were talking, my phone pinged. An email from my mom. Subject line, "Last chance." I almost deleted it unread, but something made me open it. It was short. Just one line. "If you go to court tomorrow, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." I showed it to Marcus, who'd stayed for dinner. He took a screenshot, added it to the file. Told me not to respond. Said threats like that only helped our case. That night, none of us slept well. I kept checking the locks, listening for any sound, wondering what my parents might try next, wondering if we were overreacting, wondering if we were underreacting, wondering how my life had come to this, from abandoned teenager to successful businesswoman, to hiding in my own apartment from the people who gave me life. Monday morning arrived with a strange kind of calm. We dressed carefully, business casual, respectable, trustworthy. Leah arranged for a friend to watch Lily. We drove to the courthouse in separate cars, just in case. Met Marcus on the courthouse steps. He looked confident, briefcase in hand. Told us he'd handled dozens of cases like this, that our evidence was solid, that judges took threats seriously, that we'd be protected. As we walked into the building, I saw them, my parents, standing near the entrance, looking older than I remembered, smaller somehow. My mom saw me first, made a small move toward me. My dad grabbed her arm, held her back. They didn't speak, didn't try to approach, just stared, with a mixture of anger and something else, something that might have been fear. We passed them and entered the building, checked in at security, followed Marcus to the courtroom, sat together on a bench, waiting for our case to be called. I could feel my parents enter behind us, could sense them sitting on the opposite side of the room, could almost hear their whispers. But I didn't turn around, kept my eyes forward, focused on breathing. When the judge called our case, we stood, walked forward, took our places. Marcus presented our evidence, calm, steady, clear. The break-in, the threatening texts, the flowers, the brick, the email, the long history of abandonment, the manipulation, the fear. The judge listened closely, asked clarifying questions, glanced at our parents with growing concern. When it was their turn, my parents stepped forward. No lawyer, just them. My dad spoke first. Claimed we were exaggerating, said they were just trying to reconnect with family, that they'd never broken any laws, that they loved us, that this was a misunderstanding, blown out of proportion. The judge asked about the security footage, the threats, the message on the flowers. My dad denied everything, said it wasn't them on the video, said the texts were misinterpreted, said they were the real victims. My mom nodded along, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Then the judge asked directly about what happened when I was 17. Did you leave your minor child alone and move to another state? My dad hesitated, started rambling about troubled teens, about tough choices, about financial strain. The judge cut him off. Did you leave your daughter behind without telling her, yes or no? My dad looked down, mumbled something about doing what they had to. The judge's face hardened. After hearing both sides, the decision came quickly. Restraining orders granted. 3 years. No contact. No approaching our homes or workplaces. No communication through third parties.
Violations would result in immediate arrest. My parents looked stunned, like they couldn't believe this was happening, like they'd never faced consequences before. As we left the courtroom, my mom called my name, just once, softly. I kept walking, didn't look back. With every step, I felt lighter, not healed, but beginning. The first boundary they couldn't cross without real consequences. Outside, Marcus shook all our hands, told us we'd done well, said the orders were airtight, told us to call him immediately if anything happened, said he was proud of us for standing up for ourselves. We thanked him, feeling dazed but relieved, like survivors of a natural disaster blinking in the sunlight. Josh hugged me on the courthouse steps, a real hug this time. "I'm sorry, Clara," his voice breaking, "for everything, for not protecting you, for not finding you sooner, for believing them, for bringing all this chaos back into your life." I hugged him back, told him we were going to be okay, that we had each other now, that we could build something new, something better. As we walked toward our cars, my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I almost didn't check it, but I did, and when I saw it, I froze. It was a photo of Lily, at her friend's house, playing in the backyard, smiling, unaware. Beneath it, "This isn't over yet." Just 4 words. I showed Josh the message immediately. His face went white. He called Leah, who was already on her way to pick up Lily. I told them to meet me at my apartment. Then I called Marcus from the car. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. He told me to forward the text, said to drive straight home.
Marcus said he'd call the police and meet us there. Said this was a clear violation of the restraining order. Said to stay calm, but stay vigilant. The drive back felt like it took forever. I kept checking my mirrors, paranoid my parents were following me. When I finally pulled into my building's garage, I sat in my car for a minute, just breathing, trying to pull myself together before facing Josh and Leah. They needed me to be strong right now. I found them already inside my apartment. Leah was clutching Lily like she might disappear. The poor kid looked confused and scared. Josh was pacing, running his hands through his hair over and over again. I showed them the text. Leah started crying. "They were watching my baby," she whispered. "If anything had happened to Lily, I'd never forgive myself." Josh pulled them both into his arms. He looked more focused, more resolved than I ever seen him. Marcus arrived about 20 minutes later with 2 police officers. They took our statements, looked at the message, made a few calls, said they'd send a patrol unit to the friend's house to check on Lily, said they'd try to trace the number, said they'd increase patrols around my building. All the right things, but I could tell they didn't fully grasp how dangerous my parents could be, how unhinged, how desperate. After the police left, we sat in the living room trying to figure out what to do next. Leah suggested checking into a hotel under different names. Josh thought we should drive to his cousin's house a few states away. I just sat there, getting angrier by the minute. This was bullshit. We'd done everything right. Filed every report, followed the law, got the restraining orders, and they were still terrorizing us, still controlling our lives with fear. I stood up suddenly. I'm done running, done hiding, done letting them dictate how I live. They already stole my childhood. I'm not giving them my adulthood too. Josh looked at me like I'd lost it. "What are you planning to do?" he asked. I didn't know. Not yet. But I knew we couldn't keep living like this. That night, we took shifts, staying awake while the others slept. I took the first watch, sitting in the dark by the living room window, watching the street below. Around 2 a.m., I saw it. My dad's old Buick, circling the block, once, twice, a third time. Then it parked across the street. I grabbed my phone, took pictures. Then I woke Josh. We sat together, watching,
silently. Our dad stayed in his car, didn't approach, didn't break the law, just sat there, watching, waiting. In the morning, I sent the photos to Marcus. He said it was concerning, but not technically a violation, since he stayed off the property. Told us to keep documenting everything. Said he'd contact the detective again. I hung up feeling frustrated. The law had limits. Restraining orders were just paper. Paper couldn't stop someone who didn't care about consequences. Josh and Leah decided to take Lily to a hotel, somewhere with interior corridors, good security. I helped them pack, hugged them goodbye, promised to check in every few hours. After they left, I sat in my apartment, alone, but calm, like I'd reached a breaking point, or maybe a decision point. I called Melissa, told her everything, asked her what she thought I should do. She was quiet for a moment, then asked a question that hit me hard. What do you actually want from your parents? Not what you didn't want, not what you were afraid of, but what you truly actively wanted. I realized I'd never thought about it that way. After we hung up, I made a list. To live without fear, to have a real relationship with my brother and his family, to stop feeling responsible for my parents' actions, to be free of the past. Nowhere on that list was reconciliation. Nowhere was forgiveness. Nowhere was understanding why they did what they did. I just wanted to be free. That afternoon, I did something that felt insane. I emailed my parents. Just a short message. I know you're watching my building. I know you're not going to stop. So let's talk one last time. Tomorrow, noon, the coffee shop on 8th Street. Just me. No police, no lawyers. After that, you leave us all alone forever. I hit send before I could change my mind. I didn't tell Josh or Leah, didn't tell Marcus, didn't tell Melissa. This was something I needed to do for me. I wasn't naive enough to believe my parents would suddenly become reasonable people, but I needed to face them on my terms.
I needed to say my piece. Needed to end this cycle, once and for all. My dad replied within minutes. Just, we'll be there. No threats, no guilt trips, just confirmation. I spent the rest of the day preparing. Not physically, mentally. Thinking through what I wanted to say, what they needed to hear, what boundaries had to be set. That night, I slept surprisingly well, like the decision itself had lifted something off my chest. The next morning, I dressed with care. Not to impress them, just to feel strong, solid, grounded. I took an Uber to the coffee shop, arriving 15 minutes early. Chose a table in the back corner, one where I could see the door but wasn't visible from outside. Ordered a coffee I didn't want, and sat and waited, surprisingly calm. They arrived exactly at noon. They looked older than they had in court, more worn down, smaller somehow. My mom saw me first, nudged my dad. They approached slowly, like they were walking up to a wild animal that might bolt. They sat down across from me, said nothing. We just stared at each other for a long moment. These strangers who were once my parents. These people who shaped me in ways they would never understand. I spoke first. I didn't call this meeting to reconcile, or to give you money, or to hear your excuses. I called it to make one thing clear. It's over. You've lost, not just the court case. You've lost me. You've lost Josh. You've lost your grandchildren. You've lost any chance of being part of our lives. And if you can't accept that, if you keep stalking us, threatening us, trying to force your way back in, I will destroy you. My dad opened his mouth to speak. I held up my hand. I'm not finished. I pulled out my phone and showed them the screenshots, the threatening texts, the photo of Lily, the emails. I've sent copies to people in your lives. Not yet, but I will. Your siblings, your church, your neighbors, your employers. If you contact any of us again, If you come near our homes, if you mention our names to anyone we knew, I will make sure everyone knows exactly who you are." My mom started crying. "We just want our family back," she sobbed. "We made mistakes, but we deserve another chance. We're getting older. We don't want to die alone." I looked at her for a long moment. "You should have thought about that before you abandoned your 17-year-old daughter, before you lied to everyone about what you did, before you broke into Josh's house, before you threatened your own grandchild." My dad's tone shifted, got angry. "You're ungrateful. You've always been difficult. You turned your brother against us. You owe us for raising you." I laughed, actually laughed in his face. "Do you really think you're entitled to gratitude for doing the bare minimum for 17 years before walking away completely? Do you think your parenting was so amazing that I should be thanking you for it?" He didn't answer, just sat there, red-faced, silent. My mom was still crying, but I felt nothing. No guilt, no sympathy. Just a cold, sharp clarity. These people would never change, never take responsibility, never be the parents I deserved. I stood up. "This is your last warning. Next time you violate the restraining order, I won't just call the police. I'll make sure everyone you know understands exactly what kind of people you are. I have the resources to make your lives very difficult if you force my hand. I don't want to, but I will, to protect my family, my real family. Josh, Leah, Lily, the people I choose." As I walked away, my mom called out after me, "Do you really hate us that much?" I stopped, turned around. "I don't hate you. I feel nothing for you. You're strangers to me now, and that's your loss, not mine." I walked out of that coffee shop feeling lighter than I had in years. Called Josh from the sidewalk, told him everything. He was upset at first, angry I'd met them alone, then worried they might retaliate, but mostly he sounded relieved that someone had finally stood up to them directly. "I wish I'd had the guts to do that years ago," he said. I went back to my apartment, packed a bag, and decided to join them at the hotel just to be safe. When I got there, Lily ran to hug me. "Auntie Clara," she shouted, for the first time. I nearly cried. Leah hugged me too. "I'm proud of you," she said. "I hope you finally get some peace." Josh didn't say anything, just squeezed my shoulder. It was enough. We spent the next few days in a strange limbo, waiting for my parents to make their next move, checking our phones constantly, jumping at every unexpected sound. But nothing came. No calls, no texts, no emails, no sightings of their car. Just silence. After a week, Josh and Leah decided to go back home. They changed all the locks again, installed new security cameras, and started making plans to put their house on the market. They began looking at places closer to my city. I went back to my apartment too. Back to work, back to something like normal life. 2 weeks passed, then a month. Still nothing from my parents. Marcus checked in regularly, said the detective had confirmed they'd returned to their home state, said the restraining orders were still in effect, said we should stay vigilant but try to move forward. So, slowly, we did. Josh found a new job in my city. Leah enrolled Lily in preschool. They bought a house just 20 minutes from my apartment. We had dinner together every Sunday, started building new traditions, new memories, a new kind of family, one based on choice, not obligation. I kept expecting to feel something about my parents. Grief, maybe? Guilt? Anger? But mostly, I felt relief. Like I'd finally set down the heavy weight I'd been carrying since I was 17. Like I could finally look forward instead of constantly looking back. 6 months after the coffee shop confrontation, I got a letter. It was forwarded through Marcus, so my address remained private. It was from my mom. I almost didn't open it. almost threw it away, but curiosity won. It was short, just a few paragraphs. No excuses, no demands, just an acknowledgement that they'd hurt me deeply, that they'd failed as parents, and that they understood why I wanted nothing to do with them. That they were in counseling, that they would respect the restraining orders, and that they hoped, someday, I might be willing to hear a real apology, but understood if that day never came. I showed it to Josh. He'd gotten a similar one. We talked about it over dinner. Whether it was sincere, whether it changed anything, whether we could ever trust them again. We didn't reach any conclusions, just agreed to take it one day at a time, to prioritize our healing, to protect the family we were building. I keep the letter in my desk drawer, not because I'm ready to forgive, not because I want reconciliation, but because it represents something important. My parents finally acknowledging my right to draw a line, my right to choose who gets access to me, my right to define family on my terms. Last week, Lily had her 4th birthday party. Josh and Leah invited me to help plan it. We hosted it at my apartment. Balloons everywhere, a beautiful cake from a fancy bakery, presents stacked on the coffee table. Lily ran around in a sparkly princess dress, laughing. Leah took photos. Josh grilled burgers on my balcony. Friends came by throughout the day. So much noise, so much joy. At one point, I stepped into the kitchen just for a breath of quiet, and I stood there watching through the doorway. Josh was spinning Lily in circles. Leah was laughing at something one of their friends had said. My apartment, once so quiet, so empty, was full of life and love. And I thought about that note on my kitchen counter 12 years ago. You'll figure it out. And I had. Not the way they meant, but I did figure it out. I figured out what family should be, what love looks like, what I've always deserved. I'm not saying everything's perfect now. I still have trust issues, still go to therapy every week, still wake up from nightmares about being abandoned, still flinch when the doorbell rings unexpectedly. But I'm healing. We all are. We're building something new, from the broken pieces of the past. Something stronger, something chosen, something real. Sometimes people ask me if I'll ever reconcile with my parents, if I'll ever let them meet Lily, if I'll ever forgive them for what they did. I don't have answers to those questions yet. Maybe someday, maybe never. But what I do know is this. I'm not defined by what they did to me anymore. I'm defined by what I built after, by the person I chose to become, by the family I chose to create.